Hey guys, today we're in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 2. So we started off in chapter 1 of Moses recounting what has happened so far. And we're still in that memory. And so if you remember, I gave you some sections yesterday. So the first through the third chapters are what I call the story so far. And so in chapter 2, we pick up right where Moses left off. They were left off in Kadesh for many days. Then in chapter 2, he says, God tells them that you've been here enough, turn northward. So they walked around the wilderness for 38 years, and now God says, turn northward, head towards the promised land. He says, but you're about to come to the people of Esau, that's the Edomites, and he says, do not contend with them, for I will not give you their land. He says, do not battle them. And this is an important note to say that Israel was not just a roaming army. They weren't just a group of people that were taking over land, becoming a monster nation. They had a place. They had a home, and they were just trying to get to that home that God has given them. So he says, don't contend with them. And notice it says in verse 6 and in verse 7, it says, you should purchase food, you shall purchase water from them. Meaning that they shouldn't act poor. They shouldn't act desolate. They shouldn't say, oh, we're starving, please let us through. No, they are God's people. They are to act in the right manner and act as if God is blessing them, because that's what he is doing, right? What's interesting about this, a little fact from my trip in February, it says that you would buy water. Petra, that you know Petra, the place of Petra was known as the water source. So all of Jordan kind of comes down, and in this huge valley, it was known as Oasis. It's kind of this place that they learned to capture all this water, and they would sell water to the caravans along the King's Highway. And that's what God is telling them that they should do. They should buy water and food. And what happens, God reminds them in verse 7, I love this, it says, these 40 years the Lord your God has been with you, you have lacked nothing. You have lacked nothing. This goes to tell us something, that even though they've been in the wilderness, even though they've had manna for 38 years and quail and water from rocks and all kinds of things, even though they have wanted things, they've truly never been in want, because they were exactly where God has them to be. And he turned and went in the direction of Moab, the Moabites. And the Lord said to me, do not harass Moab or contend with them, because I will not give you their land either. So we see that they will go around the Edomites. They will go around the Moabites. And it's exactly what they did. And then we see in verse 16, it says, as soon as all the men of war had perished and were dead from among the people, the Lord said to me. So after the complete first generation of Israel has died off, now it is just the second generation. He now tells them, after the last soldier dies, today you are to cross the border of Moab at Ar. Today you are to move even closer to the promised land. He says, and when you approach the territory of the people of Ammon, do not harass them or contend with them, for I will not give you any of the land of the people of Ammon as a possession. The same as Edom, the same as Moab, and now the same as Ammon. And so this goes all the way down until verse 24. Rise up, set up on your journey, and go over the valley of Arnon. Behold, I will give you into the hand Sihon the Amorite, and the king of Heshbon. And so he has took them around. If you're thinking of a map, that kind of at the bottom They're coming up. They went around Edom. They went around Moab. They went around Ammon. And now they are in the place of the Amorites. And so God says, okay, here you are going to battle. I'm going to give you this king. I'm going to give you this king of Sihon. And so he sent messengers ahead. They done all this. But verse 30, but Sihon, the king of Heshbon, would not let us pass by him, for the Lord your God had hardened his spirit and made his heart obstinate. And so here, unlike the other kings that would not let them pass through, that was on their own accord. But here, God is playing in. He's making sure that King Sihon would not allow them to come through. Why is that? Well, we skipped the verse, but here I want to go back to it. Verse 25. Verse 25, God says, I will begin to put dread in the fear of you on the peoples who are under the whole heaven, who shall hear the report of you and shall tremble and be in anguish because of you. What does that mean? For those of you who are in Green Acres, we read through Joshua. Those of you who don't, you may know Joshua chapter 2, when the spies went in to see Rahab across the promised land, across the Jordan. They go into Jericho and they meet this prostitute named Rahab. Rahab knows these men, and they say, we have heard of what you have done, and it has put the fear in the heart of men. Everybody is scared of Israel and the God who leads Israel. Why were they scared? Because of Sihon and the next king, Og. And so God says, okay, you're going to go around Edom, you're going to go around Moab, you're going to go around Ammon, but we're going to stop right here in the Amorite country because I need you to defeat these kings, these huge monster of a kings who has a great territory, so that all of the people of the promised land, all of the people of the world will be scared of you, will be scared of me, and will know that I am the one true God. And so that's why we see in verse 30, God says he hardened the heart of King Sihon, that says, absolutely not, so that Israel would go against them, so that the world would be scared, so that they could take the promised land, so that when the world heard of Israel and their God, they would know that he is the one true God, and they would listen. And so you can see God's hand moving in all of this story to bring everything to his glory, right? People would hear, hearts were changed, and people were saved. We see that in the story of Rahab and many people as we continue to read through the Old Testament. Verse 34, they defeated Sihon. We captured all of his cities, and we were devoted them to destruction, which means they gave them to God. They burnt them down to nothing. They were wicked and sinful, and they devoted those to God. And the Lord our God gave all into our hands. And so you can see God is a part of this message. So when I think about this story, which we've already read in the book of Numbers, but we think about, where is Jesus in this? Jesus is our provider. Jesus is the one that is moving ahead of us. He is at the right hand of the Father interceding for us. When I read these kind of stories, I think of Jesus telling them, do you see the sparrows? Do you think that they worry about food for tomorrow? No. My Father knows them and knows what they need, and he provides everything. How much more does he love you? How much more does he provide for you? The Lord provided everything that they needed. And it's a great reminder for us. No matter, he didn't say that the Lord didn't push them into war, because they did go to war. They did have a battle. They were walking around in the desert. All the things that they thought at the time were the worst thing, God loved them, God knew them, God provided for them, and God had an ultimate goal for them. And it's just a great reminder for us that We don't know what we're going through now and how that will affect tomorrow. God's plan is always better than ours. Hope that makes a little bit more sense, and we will see you tomorrow in Deuteronomy chapter 3. God bless.